Welcome back to another episode of the Arubenaya Show, where we spotlight hands-on entrepreneur and blue-collar leaders who are building success with grit, skill, and heart. Today's guest is someone who has bridged the field and the boardroom. Nick Partington started as a contractor, built a restoration business from scratch, sold it and run Diesel, a platform connecting contractors to heavy equipment they need with ease and speed. He walked the paths from chaos to clarity, and his blueprint for building smart system is a game changer for anyone working with their hands and leading a team. Nick, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
What was it like growing up, Nick?
Well, I mean, I grew up in South Florida, West Palm Beach. I would say that, a lot of what I learned at an early age really yielded into um, things that I was able to use down the road. I didn't grow up with much. And one of the things I did when I was younger that kind of started my sales and just getting out there and getting comfortable with rejection was we had three large mango trees, and we used to go and get the mangoes, and I would walk up and down the street knocking on doors, selling them to my neighbors. That probably was, I don't know, 6 8 years old. It was pretty young. But it was one of those things that kind of like, I didn't realize it then, but it kind of gets you used to certain things and overcoming certain challenges that you're always going to deal with in the business world, especially if you're more on the sales minded side of things. Um, so I mean, other than that, I mean, had a great family, everybody healthy, and I have a younger brother, and um, things were good and stable growing up. I mean, nothing too crazy.
Oh, that's amazing. Growing up, were
Growing
you drawn to building or were you drawn to visit things? And yeah, I just want to see how those things connected to building the contractor business that you started. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, my construction career, I mean, it started at an early age. I mean, I used to do a lot of general labor work and helping other contractor and other tradespeople, um, lay tile and dig ditches, and I mean, whatever I could do to essentially make money. Um, but I learned a lot about construction and how homes were put together, and um, then after that, I went off to college, and then I started getting into the insurance world. So I was able to kind of bridge the gap between insurance carriers and the construction world, which a lot of times are two different languages.
Yeah.
Um, and in that, I mean, I learned that there was a lot of value in the construction aspect of things, and I had a lot of people that I would build relationships with that would then start to they would want me to do the actual construction for the home, when they would have insurance claims and things like that. So that's I basically took my years of experience in working in the trades before, at a young age, and kind of developed that and into building a business, from the ground up. And essentially, at the end of it, took it to about 60 employees.
Wow, 16 employee. Wow, that's amazing. And how did those period where you're working in different trade, in constructing home, how did it build your entrepreneurial skill?
I mean, trades are always risky. I think the biggest thing is, especially in the line of work that I was in, is just the cash flow element. We were dealing with a lot of insurance carriers and going in after disasters and repairing people's homes and businesses. And, a lot of times you do the work and you wait 90 days at best to get paid, right? So then there's a
Wow.
strain in cash flow and managing that cash flow that comes into it. And you have to get really good with doing those things in order to, keep the business going and growing. Because to some degree, you can't almost even grow too fast because of the cash flow challenges you have at an early stage company.
So what were those major skills you pick alongside while you were doing those things? If you can name them more like, being that through those processes what you were doing, you were able to kind of learn more about entrepreneurship. What were those key skills you pick during when you were starting out?
I think the biggest thing in the beginning, it's just persistence, and you're going to come up with a lot of challenges, and you just got to know like what you're doing is the right thing. And sometimes you doubt yourself. Don't get me wrong. I think everybody
Yeah.
does, but it's that persistence and knowing like what you're working on and what you're building can be for the greater good. Um, so I'd say persistence is a big one. Um, Definitely getting focused on what your goals are, what you want to achieve, you know, what kind of company you want to have. And then really, really, because there's also a lot of distractions that come in with building a business, and there's going to be a lot of people that want to sell you their products and sell you their services, and some are good, and but I would say probably 90% of them are just noise. And it's one of those things that you have to get good at kind of tuning out that noise and staying focused as to what you want to achieve and what really lends to the growth of the company. And those things aren't, it's not always that easy to figure out, but it's something you kind of have to develop in a skill set. You kind of have to learn to be able to grow your company.
Oh, wow, 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 that's amazing. Thank you. How did your journey started when you started your restoration businesses more like from the scratch? How did it get started? From doing your own side job, then to creating a company where you now employ a lot of persons to work alongside with you?
Yeah, I mean, started with me in a truck, and just kind of learned and developed systems and processes. So, we always I always wanted to make people feel like we really cared about their home. So we really focus on doing things outside of just getting the work done, which is people are obviously paying you to do the work. But what else can you do to make it feel that they got more value than the work itself? And then creating those systems and processes around that so that you can then hire and grow a team and be able to develop and train and keep everybody on the same page and build a culture where everybody knows what they're working towards and what they're striving to build. I think it's very important, and it seems easy when it's completed, but it takes a lot of hours and a lot of sleepless nights to kind of like think through
Yeah.
things. I always found that I personally I solved a lot of my issues, when I would go on runs, right? And I think, having an outlet and just kind of a way to disconnect but still be connected to the business to solve some of those challenges that any business is going to be up against, is one of the key components. And with that, it's just one of those things that when you're building a team, the culture is probably and a lot of people say this, right? Culture is very important, and it obviously is. But it's truly one of those things that if you build the right culture, like it becomes much easier to hire, to train, to develop, because then your team, they'll start weeding out people that aren't a good fit for the culture for you. Like you don't even have to, because you can't obviously be in all places all at once. So it's one of those things that like you do, and you create the systems around just trying to replicate like what you believe in and your thought processes, and then try to figure out how to create systems to scale that.
Okay. Our listeners who are blue collar entrepreneurs working with their hands, who are looking forward to building a structure just more like this, more like what you just spoke about. And in respect of building culture, what would you say is the key ingredients in building culture, so that they could actually train and hire people?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, I can speak from experience, and what I did is I kind of sat down and mapped out like if I'm the client, right, what would I want to see?
Mm.
What would I want that company to do? Right? What would make sense to me as a consumer if I'm on the other end of this? And it kind of just developed that, and putting together what that would look like and what would the things be that I would personally care about. And then that kind of drives like, okay, well, then you kind of better understand who your consumer is and you understand better how to market to them, right? Because once you kind of have an ideal of like what exactly, your offering is and how you're different than your competitors and what are you going to do more, then you can kind of picture who that client is and the end user is going to be. And then from there, you're going to have an idea of or who are the types of people that you want to hire, right? What skills do they need to be able to fulfill like how you envision the service, right? So you may look for certain qualities in hiring people because nobody possesses, a great amount of talent in every single area. So then you kind of just have to pick what's important to you in hiring and say, okay, these are the types of people I'm looking for, and these are the qualities that I'm looking for in a person. And a lot of times, at least for me, it wasn't even necessarily that they were coming in with skills. Honestly, I typically look for work ethic
Mm.
and just being responsible. Because
Yeah.
for me, those are certain things you can't train, right? I could teach anybody anything else about the business, right? I can teach them how to, hang drywall. I can teach people how to do all that, but they have to want to care, and they have to want to be able to show up in order for those things to be taught. So, like, those were some of the things that I look for. I actually preferred a lot of times if they didn't come in with skills.
Okay. So yeah, I learned a whole lot from what you just said. Being that if you're creating a culture, you have to look at it from the customer perspective, getting to know what they would like to see when you are working with them. And also when you're looking forward to hiring persons, you don't just look out for their skill alone, but their work ethic, their sense of responsibility, and the fact that they are easily teachable. That
The
was
things you can't
amazing.
train, the things you can't really train somebody to do, right? And those are things that
Yeah.
either people want to do it or they don't, and you can't change them. But if they have good work ethic, then that you can train them and they'll actually care to learn. Um, so whereas somebody who comes in with all the skills required for a job, but they have no work ethic, well, having all the skills but not showing up to work does nobody any good anyways,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
those are some of the things that more so I look for when hiring and building the culture.
Wow, wow, wow. Thank you for that. Our audience is going to glean a whole lot from that. And also, while you were running it, what was the tough decision, the tough lessons you learned or that happened during the course of running the company? Uh,
Toughest lesson?
yeah,
There's a lot of challenges that you run up against. I think for me, one of the things that I had to personally learn and develop and get a better skill set is like because I did care a lot. Um, Sometimes, unfortunately, there's people and clients that aren't always honest and forthcoming. Is I took some of those things, very personally. Um, where I had to kind of like learn like okay, take a step back, like these people are just who they are, but we have for every one of these just bad people that we come across,
yeah,
there's 1,000 great ones, right? um, but you always remember the bad ones, unfortunately. So that was one thing that I know I had a tough time with because I cared, right? And that was the reason why is I really cared about what we were doing. I really cared about taking care of people, and I really cared about like how the end product looked and how they felt about everything in the process. Um, so that was one lesson that I definitely struggled with that I had to overcome and kind of figure out how to deal with personally.
yeah. I think for me to just resonate with how I deal with it. Just that I couldn't put it in words, but the fact that you just voice it out, just make it lighten because I run industrial cleaning and sometimes I have some difficulties with some clients and And
Sure.
I think the only thing that keep me insane most times is the fact that I remember that I have some good ones among them who, yeah, it's a bit demanding. And me just hearing it from you just resonates, just speak volume to the fact that, yeah, it's you remembering the good time and those good customers you have, that give
Sure.
you, yeah, being able to deal with them. So while you were running that particular business, how did you actually build it before selling?
And this is, I mean, I would say that there's not a concrete answer for everyone, right? And
Yeah,
everybody has their own reasons. Um, Mine was essentially wanted to take what I had developed and plug a lot of those systems and processes into, a much bigger company, to be able to help expand things much faster and quicker. Um, there was a time when, and to be honest, like at the time, I wasn't really necessarily looking to sell my company. I was approached, and had been approached by the company who bought mine for several years. Um, and then through that, I found the team that they had. I really got along with a lot of the guys they had on their team. You know, I call a lot of them friends. So it's not just within the business world. Um, and it made sense, right? And really for me, it was like, okay, let's take what we've built. And in the service business, it's tough because you're relying on people, so businesses do take longer to scale as opposed to like
yeah,
technology companies, because technology, you can launch it and it could be in front of a million, 2 million eyes overnight. Service businesses, you can't go from 0 to 2 million clients. Like, it
yeah,
just doesn't happen. Like, you need people to do a lot of things in order to get that, and you grow over time. So I knew that, like, I could take what I had done and be able to expand it faster, and be able to kind of raise the bar in the industry, which was ultimately my goal, um, to be able to provide just better service to everybody, right? So, through a lot of talks with them, that was ultimately my reason for doing that. But I would say, everybody's going to have a different reason, right?
yeah,
Sometimes it's for expansion. Sometimes it's because you're ready to retire. Sometimes it's, there's a lot of different reasons. I also wanted to be able to focus more time and energy into the company that I'm working on now, which is in early stages. So,
yeah,
there's a lot of things that go into those thoughts. And I'd say for anybody like looking to sell, like, you got to make sure that your financials are in order, that they're clean, because they really go through, every document and every file, when you're getting acquired. So making sure all that's pretty clean and ironed out, before you get to that stage will help, that acquisition be a successful one. Because they're not going to wait forever for you to put this stuff together,
yeah.
right? They're going to kind of want it, and you're going to have to kind of put it together. So, um, those are the things that I felt were, a big part of why we sold, and what helped it be a successful acquisition.
Oh wow, wow, that's amazing. Uh, I think I also learned the fact that, I've always been thinking service business was, I don't know whether from my own end I was a bit struggling with the idea that scalability should be something that comes easier. Because then I didn't know much. But the fact that I
Yeah,
just
no,
make reference
it's
of
not.
it, yeah, it just dawned on me that scaling service business is difficult because at every point of the business you need people, and sometimes it's not just easy to just bring them as part of the team and to grow them towards or meeting all the need that your customer is demanding, which actually speak volume. So that all my audience is struggling with scaling, they should just bear in mind that it's not something that is common with them. It's common with all service business, and the fact
Yeah.
that it takes time.
No, and that's why culture is very important in service business, more so than any other business, in my opinion, because you're reliant on people to produce more revenue each year,
Yeah.
right? You need to hire more people in order to produce more revenue. So the stronger that culture is, the faster that you can do that. If you don't have a great culture and a team of people with great work ethic, like it's going to take longer to get, from let's say 0 to 5 million versus, if you have a great culture that may take, uh, uh, you know, 2 years versus like, 10 years. And I'm just throwing out examples, but the idea is that the more you can kind of figure out who you want to be and your identity as a company and who you want to serve, then it helps you hire. And then you can
Yeah.
create systems around what those employees are responsible for. And if they're good culturally, then you can bring in a lot more people a lot quicker.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you. All right. You talk about moving business from firefighting mode to clarity. What was the most common business? What was the most common sign of business being stuck in chaos?
I think what I see in working with other service businesses is they typically have, if they care, right, and most do, most successful ones do, they don't usually have a problem with growth, right? They usually can grow as fast as they can keep up. The challenge that I see with a lot of service businesses is they're more so focused on growth than putting the systems and processes in place to be able to handle that growth. So then they get to a point where they outgrew what they can really handle. And then things start to go off the rails and not turn out so well and how they would ideally want them to happen for a homeowner or a commercial client. And so then people get a bad taste in their mouth, right? They get bad reviews. Um, and sometimes it's hard to win those clients back. And usually you
Yeah.
have to spend money in order to do that, right? Either you're giving them money off the bill or you're buying them some flowers. I mean, you're doing whatever to keep them happy if you care. So I truly believe like if you have a good service business and you truly do care, growth is never the hard thing because most people aren't great communicators and they don't do all the things that service businesses advertise to do, right? And if you can do those things and just show up and tell people, when you're going to be there and actually show up when you tell them they're going to be there, you'll never have an issue growing. But
Yeah.
where it will hurt you is if you do that and then you grow too fast and you don't have the systems and processes in place to be able to handle that growth with bringing in new employees, right? It really starts at the base level, um, in my opinion, with service businesses. And the more you can fine tune, go back to the culture and the systems and processes to execute a job, and they have to be easy, right? I see a lot of people also like overcomplicate their systems and processes. Like you want them to help, your technicians out in the field, not make it more of a burden for them. So the easier you can make those, where they become routine, the more likelihood that they will follow them and be successful in following them, which then ends up, with yielding a better product for a client, right? I mean, you see it with franchises. McDonald's, for example, right? You can go to, halfway around the world and the burger is going to be very similar to the one at the McDonald's you
Yeah.
have down the street, right? And that's because they've like really mastered like fine tuning systems and processes. And it's the same thing for any service business. Um, so the more you can do that, the more successful you be, the faster you can grow. And you can handle that growth without people getting upset because things go, poorly.
Okay. Yeah, I think from what you just said, it seems you have worked with a whole lot of service businesses and yeah. So If I would say more like, if there is more like a particular audience now that's listening to you that just started his own business, service business, if you were to give him step by step way to, that is doing a better business but is still stuck and don't know how to go about it, if you could give more like a step by step advice to that particular audience, on how to grow, on how to scale without scaling too fast and losing their culture and everything, what would be your advice to them?
I think first is to start with, you know, what kind of company do you want to have? You know, how would you like to be treated if you were on the other end of that of you know, if you were the client? And then how big do you want to grow your company? Right? I To me, like, keeping a business small is not necessarily a bad thing, right? So if you want to grow your company to maybe just having 2 employees, right? Then you just kind of have to think through who's going to wear what hats. As opposed to if you're going to build a company of 50 to 100 to 1,000 employees, you're then going to have to kind of go through and something I had done is create like an organizational chart, and you kind of, even though in the beginning you don't have a need for to fill all the positions on there, you have to be thinking, okay, but when I'm at 100 employees, these are all the positions I'm going to need to fulfill, and here's the ones that I'm currently, you put your name literally in every single position that you would do as a founder and entrepreneur. And then if you do have an assistant or other people involved in the business, you would put their name and what roles that they're going to be um, responsible for. And that's, also an easy way to make sure people aren't stepping on each other's toes and trying to do the same thing. Um, and as you grow, you can then replace your name with other people, right? In that organizational chart. So it's a way to kind of like visually, and I'm a visual person, so it's kind of, for me, it was a way to like visually see, okay, I want to get to this size. What does that look like? What positions am I going to need? And then currently I'm this size, so let me put my name in all the roles that I am, and the other people that are involved in business at the time. What are they doing? And then you find too, because like there's certain things that you're good at, and there's certain things that you like to do, and it's usually the things that you're good at that you like to do. And then there's the things that you do because you just have to in owning a business, right? Like for me, bookkeeping, right? It's one of
Hmm.
those just tasks. I like finance, right? I like looking at the numbers and understanding the financials that go into a business, but the actual physical task of taking things and categorizing them in to come up with those financials, like it's not me. Some people love that, right? Some people love to do that and they
Yeah.
love the bookkeeping aspect of things. And that's where it's like, okay, once I got to a certain size, I hired a bookkeeper, right? And so then I erased my name off the organizational chart and I put that person's name in. So it's a way just kind of like you kind of want to have a visual idea of what it's going to look like based on what size you want to get to, and spend time. Carpenters say cut or measure twice and cut once, right? It's kind of the same concept. Like you want to spend almost more time planning than actually doing, because if you do spend twice as much time planning, like the doing part will be a lot faster,
Yeah.
right? As opposed to like getting to a certain stage and then you're like, heck, I didn't plan, any of this out, and then you're just trying to like put out fires everywhere you can, and things just never end well when you do that. So spend a lot of time planning, visualizing what you want your company to look like, how many people you want, what size revenue you want to get to, how many people are going to need to be on your team in order to get to that revenue. What positions do you like to do, which ones do you not like to do, right? Because obviously the ones you don't like to do are the ones you're going to hire for first, right? So that'd be what I would suggest to anybody looking to get into the service business. Is kind of just mapping things out.
I learned a lot from that. You say at first, visualize what you actually want to do so that you can gain a blueprint of the number of employees, how big you want it to be, And yeah, I think in respect of you saying how big you want to be, you make reference of the fact that creating organization charts so that you can know where what positions that is going to come up, how big you want to be, owing to how big you want to be, and then fine tune what you're able to do, and the other person you're about to bring in this particular point. Yeah, this is
Yeah,
this is amazing because I'm learning from it too. I'm still trying to kind of work in some system into what I do. Yeah, thank
yeah,
you so much for this, Nick.
absolutely, absolutely.
The way you make reference of visualization and give a whole lot of details in respect of this, was there any resources or more like a training or more like a platform that, yeah, that actually more like enlighten you on this stuff? Because the way you make reference of it, it's so detailed.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot, so there's a lot of books out there, right? There's a lot of information. Everything's in books. Uh, I went to a lot of like business seminars. Try to soak up a lot of things from other mentors in the industry, other business leaders. There's something to learn from everybody.
Yeah.
Don't let your ego get in the way. Always be a sponge. Always try to absorb as much information as you can. And that goes from the team too, right? Don't shut them off because they may have some good ideas and how problems can get solved that may be right in front of you. I would say that, having an outside person, either a consultant that you're paying or a mentor that you're not, is always good with any business because I do find like a lot of times the challenges that you have, a lot of times the answers are right in front of you, and it just gets somebody else to point them out. It's like, well, why don't you just do this? And they're like, I don't know why I didn't think of that, right? So
Yeah.
it's one of those things like always have somebody that you can kind of feed ideas to and bounce ideas off that aren't directly involved in the business, right? So that they're going to give you some outside perspective of things that you just may not realize. Um, Leverage. I mean, there's so many businesses out there and so many giant businesses. The information is all out there, and especially with the way internet is and AI and all that stuff now,
Yeah.
it's like leverage everything out there to be able to soak up as much of this information as possible. You're being able to just essentially take what other people took them thousands and thousands of hours, not millions of
Yeah.
hours to figure out, and now you have that information in an hour, right? So why wouldn't you use that? And two, like when you start, you know, reading books and audio books, and I mean, going to seminars or whatever you're doing, you're gonna just through those processes, you're gonna hear the information, and then you're gonna think, how would this apply to my business, right? And you're gonna come up with ideas from that normally wouldn't ever have thought of. So you do have to spend time in educating yourself. I mean, I think it was Warren Buffett that said people don't spend enough time investing in their human
Yeah.
capital and their own education.
Yeah.
They're willing to spend it on a lot of other things, but not themselves, which is like it is very crazy that we do that. So definitely invest in yourself. Take time to learn these things to gain the knowledge. It's all there. It's all
Okay.
there.
All right. So if you were to leave my audience with two or three books that which you have read, maybe audiobook too, what book will it be?
Um, So I really like there's a David Goggins book, Can't Hurt Me, which is great, especially
Okay.
when you're starting up because it's one of those that like kind of motivational books that
Yeah.
gets you to fight through pain.
Mm.
Um, I would say there's with any business you gotta figure out the marketing and sales side because even if you're a great operator, if you don't know how to market and sell your business, it doesn't matter. There's a book called Influence, which is really helpful into figuring out how like kind of the human mind works and how you can use certain strategies to be able to influence other people. Um, so another great one in marketing is Story Brand. That's a really good one. It basically gets you to kind of think about your marketing and how to simplify it. Um, and a lot of people, like, you get so ingrained in whatever you're doing, and we forget that we are the professionals in what we do. So when we talk to somebody who's not in what we do, you may start using words and lingo that they have no clue what you're talking
Yeah.
about. And we do that when we advertise too, right? We start using words that we understand in the industry, but people on the outside may have no clue what you're saying. So figure out how to really simplify your messaging and your branding and your marketing in a way that's very simple for people to understand. And that's what that book is like purely
Mm.
about. And that's why I do like it, because I'm one that's like, you can be the best accountant, you can have the best team, like operationally, you can have all those things, but if you can't get the phone to ring in the first place, none of that matters.
Mm.
None of it. Literally none of it. So you really gotta figure out how to sell and get yourself out there and get the trust of people, in order to call you and give you a shot.
Thank you for that. From experience, I get to find out that one of the biggest challenge trade people and young people who are just coming up are finding difficult to do is getting mentors and internship when it comes to practical step to connect with professional experience.
Yeah, I I think the mentor comes like once you get involved, with different groups, right? So, and every industry is going to have their own association. Every industry is going to have kind of their own uh, like networking groups you might want to attend. Um, and the more you get out there and just talking to people, right? It could be people that would never even be a client, but they understand what you do, and um, a lot of times people will take you under their wing, right? And but you got to kind of put yourself out there first, and you got to talk to a lot of people, and they'll if you're passionate, they'll see that passion. And a lot of people will want to help people that they just know are passionate, right? Because people like to help people at the end of the
Yeah.
day. And when they feel the passion that you have and what you want to do, um, a lot of times people will offer assistance, guidance, help, mentorship. I mean, whatever they can. Um, but it does start with getting out there and just start
Yeah.
talking to people.
Thank you very much for that. Okay. I think in your experience, what opportunity do you think is still on tap in the aspect of trade and construction? Is there any opportunity do you think is still on tap or currently in that particular space?
Yeah, I mean, in the construction world, I do believe that it's due for a technology shakeup in general. I think it's one of those industries that technology really hasn't hit. You're starting to see it a little bit more, and you're starting to see more money and capital and VC and private equity pour into it. But I do believe that there is still a long ways to go. Um, I mean, the fact that, like, just for example, like you have construction equipment, they're just now like starting to figure out how to like get that equipment to drive itself. Whereas we've got a lot of cars in the road, right? With other drivers driving themselves, right? So that's what I'm saying. It's like behind, technology wise. And, I think it's due for a lot of areas that can really improve. And really what it's going to do is just drive efficiency. I mean, we keep growing, and in order to keep growing at a certain pace, we have to become more efficient. In construction, typically the margins are not, they're not huge to begin with. So any area of efficiency that can improve margin is going to just make for a better outcome and people to be more successful, to be able to dump back into their growth and hiring and be able to grow their businesses and their brands, exponentially. So I think like anything tech wise that's starting to focus on the construction world, I think is a lot of opportunity in that.
Well, thank you very much, Nick. So let's dive into Diesel, your new company that you started lately. What gap were you seeing that in the industry that pushed you to create it?
Yeah, so like what I saw is like, you know, we're in the restoration space, so we have like a lot of equipment that we own because we need it when we need it, right? We you know, emergencies and floods and those kind of things, they come in at times that are never convenient and stores are never open, and you just kind of have to be ready always. Um, so when these you know, when our clients would have these you know, major catastrophes happen in their buildings, uh, you know, they would call us, and a lot of times, you know, sometimes we would not have enough equipment, right? And we would lend unto other contractors in the area that we were friendly with, and you know, we would rent the equipment from them. So the idea kind of started from that, and it's like, well, what if we had a platform that could just do this for us, right? And we could see what each other's inventory was at any given time. So when any of us got short on having the equipment we need for a project, we could see, you know, who's got what we need, right? That was the basis of it. So then we kept building on that idea, and you know, I really wanted to looking at the rental equipment world in general too. I felt like there's just such an opportunity to make the whole ecosystem much easier for contractors. So when we would call to rent equipment, you know, we'd get a project manager. He'd have to call, you know, 4 or 5 different companies. He'd have to kind of get the base rate for the equipment. He'd have to get the transportation costs, you know, for that equipment. He'd have to get, you know, how much the, you know, blades or whatever ancillary products, you know, were for that. You know, are they charging us in single shift, double shift, triple shift times? So then you kind of end up with like a spreadsheet of information that you have to dissect and kind of say who's got what we need for the best price. And it's going to be reliable equipment that we know is going to run throughout the project, and we're not going to have issues. Um, so from there, you know, kind of said, okay, well, why can't technology just do all this for us? I mean, we already see it. It exists when you book a flight, right? You go to
Yeah.
expedia.com and they have all of the information there, and you're able to filter, hey, I want a nonstop, or I don't mind, you know, having a stop in Atlanta, right? If it saves me some money. So then people can be more specific as to what they want, and they can filter out the options that they care about. And I thought, like, why not just have kind of all those same features, but for the equipment rental space, right? And, you know, equipment rental companies, like, their ultimate goal is utilization of these assets, right? They've already purchased them, they're sitting in a yard somewhere, and they care about getting them rented out, right? You know, when they've got a piece of equipment that's got, you know, 90%, you know, utilization, they're happy. When they've got a piece of equipment that's got, you know, 20% utilization, they're not happy. So then with that, it's like, okay, well, if we're able to create a better process for contractors, we're confident that we can get more contractors to rent this way. So we can save the rental companies on, you know, some of their costs and having to develop new relationships. But at the same time, they can take that money they're saving and be able to pour it back into the operational side of the business. So let's say when a machine does go down right out in the field, and it does happen, right?
Yeah.
It's large, heavy equipment, and it breaks. It's run really rough. So, you know, with that, like, in place of trying to go develop new business, like, they can put that money towards maybe hiring more mechanics, right? Or having extra equipment. So when that does happen, they can swap out equipment. So I think, like, ultimately, like, it can be, it can make the industry a lot better, right? I don't like the word disruption necessarily, because that's not what we're looking to do. We're really looking to improve the rental experience for contractors. And me coming from the world, I know, like, I would have loved something like that, right? When we rented equipment, um, but also make it really good for the rental companies themselves. And then if there's contractors that have equipment sitting in between projects that they want to rent out, well, they can list that too, right? And then we kind of capture this whole like ecosystem of people willing to rent their machinery out to, you know, end users. Um, So there's a lot, that goes into that, and a lot, in the decision makings, because we're launching, a national brand. Um, so with that, it's just kind of facilitating, and how is that, operational flow going to do? How are we going to make sure people feel protected, that their equipment is insured and covered, um, and of all those necessary steps to making, everybody feel comfortable with this way of doing business, uh, and also showing them how much time, money, energy, effort it can save them.
Yeah, I think this is very key because I remember, was it 4 years ago, I was working in a construction company and I was working with the architecture, and some couple of time we have to go to a particular place where we're going to rent heavy duty equipment, and the time it took us to rent, it was a whole lot. Uh,
Yeah, it's crazy.
yeah,
People don't realize how like difficult that process is. I mean, it's just
yeah,
like it makes no sense.
yeah, this actually makes sense, and once this one keep working, I think it's going to be seamless for contractors to reach out and being able to save a whole lot of cost and time too. All right,
Yeah.
thank you. So, how did you build trust with contractor and how someone was using technology solution?
I mean, for the contractor side, it's just transparency, and being clear on like what your offering is, and then also making sure that everything that we're providing is transparent, to them. And that was one of the goals of all of this too, is to how can we make, the rental side of the business like way more transparent, because it sometimes isn't, right? They don't tell you all the fine print,
Yeah,
sometimes when you're renting equipment. And I've known a lot of contractors over the years that have lost a lot of money on rental equipment, because they didn't fully understand how rental companies charge, and this, that, and the other. So, transparency, for contractors, it's just a really useful tool. So I think they'll be utilizing mainly for that. And then for the equipment, rental companies that are joining the platform, it's, making sure that they feel comfortable that their equipment's protected. Like, what happens if somebody runs it off a cliff, right? Um, and the way we have set things up, we are an insurance, company, right? So that is actually where we make our money, is offering the rental protection to, the clients. So with that program, we're able to, protect everybody's gear, but also, generate the revenue that we need in order to grow, and hire, and, develop new lines of business ourselves.
okay. Oh, thank you very much for that. So, where do you see the future of trade going, especially tech coming into it, tech system and everything? Where do you see it going?
I mean, I think technology is going to work probably more around the edges of construction for a while, right? So I think, and you're already starting to see this, like getting autonomous, construction equipment, to operate, areas that are rural, right, where there's nothing really that they can run into or damage or destroy. Um, so you'll start seeing, uh, things like that coming in. I think there's going to be a lot of probably AI tools to help project managers, project out projects, be able to build workflows, be able to, systematically put together timetables, all the subs that are going to be needed. Like, I think there's going to be a lot, on the workflow side of things that is going to be useful, and a lot of technology is going to be able to figure that out for people a lot easier than it has in the past. Um, but I think, like, as far as like specialty trades, like, especially when you're talking electrical, AC, plumbing, I think those fields won't really be touched by technology for a
Technology.
long time. Those things they're hard to.
Yeah,
It would be hard to replicate, some of what they do. Um, so because it's not the same. You don't repeat the same task every single time,
yeah,
and that's the difference, right? There might be some, maybe just like general like cleaning, that you could have technically robots, right, go in and
Yeah.
do, because it's more kind of the same thing every single time. Um, but I think, I think with time we'll see. It'll be interesting to see kind of like where technology lands in affecting the construction trade.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh wow! Thank you so much, Nick. It has really been an amazing moment. With the stories you have shared and a whole lot of blueprints of how to build a company or scale it, and some of those particular traits you need to come up in beauty culture. I must say a very big thank you for all the information. And also, if more like my audience wants to reach out to you, where can they learn more from you? And for those who are looking forward to doing business with you, how can they get to know more about you and reach out?
LinkedIn would be the best channel.
Okay.
Um, so if they want to, visit my LinkedIn channel, be more than willing to share that with anybody. And yeah, I mean, like I said, I love and I enjoy business and talking to a lot of people about things, as you can probably tell.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that would be probably the best avenue to go to start off.
Yeah, thank you, Nick. And to our listener, if this episode help you in your trade and your hustle, leadership differently, share with someone to hear about it. Keep showing up, keep building, and never stop learning from those who have gone ahead of you. This is Arubenaya Show. See you in the next one.